If you're tired of praying prayers that seem to get ignored all the time, then this video is for you. But you should know that this is part 3 of our deep dive on prayer. So if you've got a few minutes, go ahead and check out part 1 and 2. They'll be linked in the description below. But if you don't have that time, let me just go ahead and summarize it real quick. Prayer can be really frustrating, mostly because our prayers are often about trying to get God to do the things that we think God should do. But Jesus came with a different vision for prayer. He saw it as the intimate communication with the divine that would bring satisfaction to our lives. And in order to make the shift away from praying to get God to do stuff for us and toward investing in that kind of divine communication that brings satisfaction, Jesus offered some correctives and directives. His correctives were don't pray in public, don't worry about what you'll say, and don't spend the whole time asking for things. That was the first video. The point being that, like any relationship, it's best cultivated behind closed doors. There's no formula or secret code or combination of words you need to know, and it's really not about getting God to do things for you. Instead, it's about investing in the communication with a divine relationship that will bring satisfaction to your life. The first set of directives were to pray, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." These directives shift your perspective. They pull us out of ourselves and they anchor us into something much deeper, a God and a universal story that we can find ourselves in. But all that being said, Jesus doesn't want us to think that we shouldn't ask God for stuff. In fact, we're encouraged to tell God what it is that we need. So once we've been pulled out of our self-focused point of view, when we change our perspective, Jesus invites us to then tell God what it is that we need. And he breaks our needs down into 3 categories. But for now, we'll just look at the first category, the physical. Here's the prayer request. Give us today our daily bread. Now, this one might feel unnecessary. I mean, in our modern world, to get bread on the table isn't that hard. Just walk over and pull some out of the cupboard. And if by chance you don't have bread in the house, then it's really not that difficult to hop into your car or tap a button on your phone to go get some. Our bread, our food by extension, is so easily available to us. And because of the way our world works, we don't typically see what goes into making any of it. I mean, I'm so removed from the process of how most of my food ends up on my table, and I just take the whole thing for granted. So I don't really think to pray for it. But for the people Jesus was teaching, the idea of asking for daily bread was a deep and meaningful request. It was rooted in their history and their present experience. I mean, they were much more familiar with food scarcity than we are. And they had these memories and stories about their ancestors wandering in the desert. They remembered the tales of their people receiving bread from heaven and being instructed by God to just take enough for one day. I mean, in a very real way, they believed God provided their daily needs. And so Jesus taught his listeners that in order to pray satisfying prayers, you needed to ask God to supply your daily needs. What food, what drink, what clothes, what housing, what do you need physically for today? Not more, and certainly not less, but enough. That's a challenging word for me, enough. What does enough mean? On average, statistically, we throw away 1/3 of the food that we buy. What is enough? It's also important to point out that Jesus teaches us to pray, "Give us today our daily bread." You see, when you change your perspective by changing your prayers according to Jesus, it pulls you out of your moment-to-moment experience and aligns your will with God's will. And suddenly it becomes really important not just to pray, "Give me my daily bread," but to pray, "Give us." Martin Luther in the 16th century pointed out that when we pray, "Give us our daily bread," we're really asking for the provision of all the physical needs of our entire community, our country, and our world. It's a prayer that God would provide enough for everyone. Luther saw it as the kind of prayer that might move us to action, that as we lift our hand to heaven to ask God to provide for our daily needs, we're at the same time lifting our hand as a volunteer. Volunteering to be the answer to someone else's prayer for their daily need. Volunteering to be used by God to provide someone else's daily bread. This is part of how prayer can help us find our place in something bigger than ourselves, that universal story about God's kingdom that Jesus so often talked about, a place where everything's made right and everyone has enough. We can connect to that larger story by giving people pictures of what it looks like when we give to others. Prayers that are truly satisfying connect us to that thing that's bigger than ourselves by intertwining our relationship to the divine with our relationship to others. This request for physical needs, it's got me wondering about three things. Where does my food come from? Where's it grown? Where's it processed? Where's it shipped from? Who's responsible for making each leg of that journey happen? From the ground to the animal, all the way to the store and to my table. I mean, it's a huge network that's involved. It takes a lot of people to get here, and I'm counting on a lot of things to go right before I grab food off my shelf or in my fridge. There's a lot to be thankful for. There's a lot to pray for. Then I'm also wondering, what does enough mean for me? I mean, if I tracked how much food I threw out every week, would I be shocked? Would I be surprised? And more than my daily food needs, what about clothes? What about furniture? What about transportation? What does enough for today mean to me? Lastly, how am I volunteering to be God's answer to someone else's prayer for their daily bread? If I really want to anchor myself into something bigger than me, this is one of the best ways to do it. Generosity. And there are so many ways to do this. You just got to pick one. This is how you pray productive, satisfying prayers. Prayers that move you simply beyond just asking God for things. Now, if you want to go even deeper on prayer, you should watch one of these videos next. But for now, thanks for watching this one. Hit the like if you liked it. Hit subscribe if you don't want to miss out on the next ones. Share it with a friend if you thought it was helpful. We'll see you next time.